Greetings, everyone. Hope you've had a lovely morning. Before we start, we have this lovely talk titled, We Came Together, Now What? But I'm going to tell you the prelude to the story. And when we introduce ourselves, the three of us got together and put these slides in the computers, and then we realized we hadn't decided who was saying which slide. So yesterday, we had a 15-minute discussion about the mechanics of rock, paper, scissors when you have three people, because this was an option. Should we rock, paper, scissors for who does each slide?
Then we tried it once.
We tried it once, and it was like a three-way, like nobody won. So we've decided to be more adult-like, so I'll be starting at the beginning here. My name is Robin Bergeron. I work at Red Hat. I'm the Ansible community person, so if you ever need to yell at someone about Ansible, it might be me, or it might be someone else. But I take the complaints to people, and then I try to get them fixed. So next.
And I'm Melvin Hilsman. I work at Huawei, open source community operations manager. Some very big title, but just basically means I spend all my day working with open source in the community, and this is why I'm essentially here today.
Fatih Değirmenci, working for Ericsson, and I am heavily involved in OpenDev community and working together with other communities to get things integrated and tested.
Awesome. So I guess from my point of view, you guys have heard a little bit about this thing we know called Zuul, and I have been caring about OpenStack and Ansible and Fedora and CI things in general across a lot of communities for a number of years. And we all got together because it turns out we all had these same deep inner wishes, like it would be neat if we all worked together since we all sort of depend on each other in all sorts of parts of the stacks. But this was sort of the main premise about when we actually finally did get together. We all do CI/CD. Mostly, we've occasionally tried in the past to talk to each other, but it's always been, at the behest of, some pointy-haired corporate overlord or something like that, and we did the genuine effort to, really get together, put some stuff aside. We all do have similar challenges, sometimes overlapping challenges, but we've all sort of been in our own little silos, right? Like any organization of any size might be doing that we all are trying to break out of. Tons of ideas, we all know this. This is a whole entire, 2 days of nothing but ideas and thinking. So yeah, but I think above all, we're all in open source land, and we all sort of very much believe in collaboration and, the power of, by our powers combined rather than by our powers in little silos where you get nothing done. So, but trying to encourage it and figure out, rather than having 20 groups collaborating, imagine if we worked together, we might get more stuff done. So, as mentioned, really getting all the barriers that we had before out of the way, having some dedicated time to actually talk and develop empathy for one another as humans and the problems that we all have in our individual communities, and actually start to think about ourselves as a community on our own. We're people who care about this, and what does that mean and what can we call that? And really, at the end of the day, a lot of it is just about making better software for end users and having better processes for our communities. So if nothing else, do some stuff and we can all feel good about it. And if it improves life for even one person, I think it's probably a better world. Of course, like many things, we always say, everything is about culture. It's not about tools. Turns out there are a lot of tools. And so trying to figure out how to work across a number of communities and talk to each other, whether as humans or in terms of software bits, talking to each other and waving at each other, saying hello, hi. Yeah, so Garrett, GitHub, GitLab, Jenkins, Zuul, Spinnaker, Nexus, Artifactory. There are 800 more that aren't listed here.
Yeah, it
also,
the slide.
and then there's all the closed source ones too. So tools are neat. They help us to do what we need. We've got a big list of things. I'm hot on the automate and collaborate for obvious reasons, but they help us to get our jobs done. Hopefully they aren't getting in the way, and hopefully they're just helping our workflow be better and better. But they shouldn't be telling us, this is the only way you can do stuff. This is the only way we will tolerate having things done. It's a lot more than that. So not dictating to each other as a community of people from lots of places what tools we should be using is, one of our greatest wishes when we all got together for the first time was, can we put that stuff aside, recognize that there are tools, some of them do specific things, and instead we'll talk about what are our problems and how we can do other things better. And with that, I believe this is where I hand off to you, gracefully. Look at that. I'm
So I guess I'll march this way. So we've been using this word we quite a bit. We've heard that. And so we essentially consisted of some folks who got together before ONS in LA. And it was a workshop, CI/CD, Infra face-to-face workshop. And everyone is not in the picture. Some folks had to run off, but it's a great deal of folks from a number of different communities there. Some of you all are in here, so you should be glad that your photo is up. And the thing about it was that we wanted to move away from theory and not specific tools. And again, like Robin mentioned, those tools dictating what we can and cannot do, what we can and cannot share, where we can and cannot talk, all that good stuff. And we really, we're thinking about, okay, like pragmatic goals and themes that we should, as practitioners of CI/CD, infra, automation, and these things, like we should get together and probably look at those versus let things dictate for us. And so we have practitioners from many communities, as you can see here, Ansible, CNCF, OpenStack, OpenDev, like everybody, which was great. And then not just, again, theory, because you see those logos and sometimes you're like, well, really, where does the rubber hit the road, right? And so what's great is that it was really about operators and developers of these major CI systems and initiatives from within these communities getting together. And what we achieved was that, we got to know each other a lot better. It's always great to put a face to an IRC handle. People, found out that we share a lot of concerns very similar to one another. There are a lot of things that are not just concerns, but stuff that we were already doing that we could share, some that wouldn't bother our massive tools that we're already using, but things like how do we do like documentation really easy? Well, we've got this great thing we're working on, and maybe you could use it instead of building something on your own. And then we got community contacts. So this was pretty great, is that we have folks actually from these communities step up and say, as a CI/CD practitioner, sometimes it's hard when I'm trying to talk to a person in another community. And so it'd be great to have an identified person who I could approach, who could help me understand who else to talk to.
Right, traffic director.
A traffic director. And we identified some key themes that we thought we should start tackling. And again, you saw those logos, and here's another one. What we were like, is, it could be some issues, with maybe doing it Linux Foundation or OpenStack or Ansible or whatnot. So we need a neutral space.
It's expressly unaffiliated.
Yeah,
it's affiliated with freedom, and I believe that's about it, right?
Yeah, so we needed a neutral space, and OpenCI was what we came up with. And it's a play on our shared context where CI is not really continuous integration like CI/CD, but it's community integration. Fatih?
So, apart from this, like getting to know each other well and talking about the challenges, problems we all have been experiencing within our communities or across our communities, these are the first few challenges or themes we identified as an outcome of the first workshop. Now, we all talk with each other. This is not the first time we start talking to each other. We have been talking to each other for years. And one of the things we realized that, like, even though we are talking about same things, we use different words to tell what it is. And this actually slows down the communication, and you have to spend some time to explain what you actually meant, but which was actually the same thing the other person was talking about.
And when I say testing, you mean something else.
Yeah.
When I say gating, what do you mean by gating?
Exactly. So it's basically like, if you forget about all the technology stuff, all the tools, all the cool things we can achieve, the most important thing is that we need to establish a vocabulary, shared terminology, so we as humans can talk to each other, talk about our problems, talk about our ideas, and pass those things between each other. So that is the first thing that came up with this workshop. Okay, we should sit down and write down what community is calling certain thing in what way. And then we should create some kind of matrix to map these things with each other so we know when we talk to each other, we understand each other well, and hopefully over time we can have some convergence around terminology as well. So everyone can start talking the same language, and then we get even faster. The second thing is about, okay, we know we need to find a common language between humans, but we need to do the same with our machines as well. So we have seen in the morning, we have Jenkins, we have Zool, we have Spinnaker, which community is using for running CI/CD for themselves. And those tools or those systems don't talk to each other either. They use different languages, they use different terminology, they store stuff in different artifact repos, and this is nearly impossible to, create this cross-community CI because you have to have 10 different ways of looking at what artifact has just become available from Kubernetes community, so we can put on top of OpenStack, but then OpenStack uses something else, and then we as OpenDev need to bring both of them, and we need to support both these different ways of doing things and getting our machines talk to each other. And that is the thing about this time getting the machines talk to each other. And that is actually integrating these continuous integration systems. So we can have this end-to-end integration by using different open source technologies. And one of the proposals we have there is about using events to drive our CIs, or this cross-community CI, and have some kind of federation in place, which means that we don't ask any community to change how they are doing that. It is impossible and it's not fair. And we don't want to do that. All the communities, they should do what they need to do in the way that helps to developers. So we don't want to disturb anything, but we want to have something across all these communities to ensure this communication happens across CI systems as well.
As a community, I want to listen to the other communities in the easiest way that it is for my community to listen and make decisions based on events.
Exactly, like, okay, I'm OpenStack now, and some patch on Neutron got merged, and there might be 20 other communities who are looking after Neutron, and they should be able to see that happening, and they should directly start doing stuff on their side, and that requires some solution in place. So OpenStack or Kubernetes, they can basically announce the availability of certain things to world, and whoever is out there can consume those events and do stuff on their side, which is basically pops up, it's nothing magic here. And the other thing, the third one is like, okay, what CI is about? It's about feedback. So we do some development on our machines, we run some stuff locally, and then we send it to Gerrit or GitHub or whatever we are using, and something starts happening there, giving feedback to us. But in cross-community type of setup, the question is like, how can we tell Kubernetes community this thing doesn't work? There is no way to do that, because you have to go there and work on their GitHub, but what we are doing is outside of GitHub. We are pretty far from the SCM, because we have some artifact which might have been built last week, and we don't have any way to pass that feedback back to developers. And that is the third thing we identified. Okay, what are the means we can provide this feedback, and how we can make this feedback and logs and whatever might be needed by developers easily accessible, and we need to have some visualization for this as well, so they don't need to look at logs, 100,000 lines logs. And the fourth thing, why are we running CI? We are testing things, but who is testing what? Do we need to write new test case? Or maybe OpenStack community has some test case, we can pull them down. Or maybe Kubernetes has some test case, we can do that same thing and pull them down there. So we need to identify who is testing what and come up with some kind of cross-community test strategy, so we don't waste our time to rewrite test case which might be available somewhere, and find out how we can add value to all this cross-community CI by testing things that are not tested by other communities. So we, in the end, can have this long pipeline. Each community is testing certain things, but in the end, we can have larger test coverage if we can have the cross-community test strategy in place. And the last thing, actually, the funny thing about security is we realized security at the last moment. Last few hours of workshop, Sunday afternoon, everyone was tired. I was like, okay, we have security. We need to think about security like the rest of the world. We ignored security as well. But in the end, we realized, okay, we need to add security as topic.
That guy's laughing because we roped him in.
So there's also security. And as you see, these all form certain things, like this is about cross-community, continuous integration, whatever you name it. We need to come together and work on these things as a big, happy family. And we need to solve these things together because these problems, not specific to single community, we all have similar problems and we need to solve them out by working together. And what is next? Yeah, this is our second get-together when you look at from OpenCI perspective. And we want to continue working together. Everyone thought this was a good idea, and we have great interest in what we are trying to do, and we will continue bugging people. We are reaching out other communities to include those communities and people and bring new ideas from those communities, because we have 8 communities there, but if you look at open source ecosystem, there are lots of communities out there. We want to reach out to them and continue bugging those people.
And I think none of us have any major conferences for at least 2 months, so I feel like now is the time where we'll actually be able to get more things done than it seems like.
Definitely.
I know if there's anyone from Apache community here, because I sent an email to Apache community, they ignored me, so I need help. And Jenkins community, they ignored me as well, so Ray needs to help us. Okay. So yeah, that is basically...
You can hug them then.
Yeah, we need more people involved in this so we can hear their side of the story, and they might have really great ideas and we work with those ideas. We might not be able to find all the problems all these communities are facing, and it's impossible to find and address all the problems, but it's always good to have more ideas, new people with fresh minds coming in and helping us with this. And keep pushing. Yeah, we will continue pushing. Like, we will be there wherever, whichever event is there. There will be hopefully someone there. If we are not all there together, someone will hopefully be there passing the word. And the last thing is, like, we need to start doing real stuff as well. Like, slides are boring, but we need to ensure that we have real stuff going on, and that's the thing we start doing recently, to trial things, some ideas. So, real stuff. As I said, like, we humans speak in different languages. Like here, we have English as common language, so we can understand each other. When it comes to CI/CD stuff, we have differences in terminology and vocabulary. That is one of the things we want to solve, and we want to establish a shared vocabulary, and so on. And the other thing is, like, making machines talk as well. And as you see here, we have 3 communities, Open Daylight, ONAP, and OpenMFE. Even though all these communities use Jenkins, they do things differently. And some of them are based on Java, some of them are not even developing code, such as OpenMFE. And the differences are because of the way they develop the software or integrate the software. And we can't just forget about all these details and just ask them to fix everything so we can all work together. And instead of that, we say, let's find a language for our machines as well, so they can work with each other happily. And now I will take the risk and try to do demo here, because
yes, live demo.
It is just a hello world demo, but
a
it's
live demo.
Live demo, so
not a dead demo. That's the part there. Like,
so one of the things I mentioned is event-driven CI/CD, and there are a few people who are looking into this. I must mention their names, like Andy, Tan, Trevor, Daniel Farrell, Yolanda. I might have forgotten some others. So we start talking about this event-driven CI/CD federation, and we said, okay, what do we have now? Okay, we have OpenMFE, we have ONAP, we have ODL. We don't want to deal too complicated things at this phase, and we said, okay, they are all using Jenkins. Let's start with these communities. And in order to have this CI/CD federation or event-driven CI, we need to come up with some events, and we basically identified 3 events based on OpenMFE use cases and what other communities are doing. For example, OpenDaylight has this auto-release thing. They run it on a nightly basis, and they build OpenDaylight artifacts, they test them, and they make them available on their artifact repo, which is Nexus. And currently, we basically randomly pick some artifact from their artifact repository and bring it to OPNFV community. And similar thing is there for ONAP as well. But it's, I think, the problem with how the jobs are constructed there is a bit different than how OpenDaylight is doing this. ONAP has similar jobs. They build stuff, they test it, they upload it to artifact repo, and CNCF community parses Jenkins logs, looks at other logs to find out if that artifact is really good enough for CNCF Kubernetes community to pull down and test, which is like, last time I talked to them, their side of CI gets broken almost weekly basis because someone changes the job format or build command or whatever, and the log text changes, and then their regular expressions stop working, and they basically can't bring things to CNCF cross-cloud CI. So based on this, we said, okay, let's create the artifact published event as a sample example event and put some metadata in it. And this is, again, just an example. This is not set in stone. We need to have some events, and we start with this. We basically have the type of the event, we have the ID of the event, unique ID, the time, origin, build URL, which job built that artifact, which branch, and where that artifact is located, and what is the confidence level, how good this artifact is. And then once ODL or ONAP Jenkins builds and tests this artifact, they can publish this event telling the world they have a new artifact. People can pull down and use it relatively with higher confidence. And if we look at this from integrator point of view, now we have an artifact from ODL, we have an artifact from ONAP, and then we need to put these things together. When it comes to ONAP, we need to put it on top of Kubernetes. When it comes to ODL, we need to put it on top of OpenStack. And then we need to create a composition there. We need to create a scenario. And that brought us to this composition-defined event, which basically means, okay, what are we composing here? In this case, in OpenStack and OpenDaylight case, we have this scenario which uses ODL SDN controller, and basically it has the default fields there and the composition name and some place to keep the metadata about all the details, artifact versions and so on. And this is what we do in OPNFV. As I said, we are an integration project, and we pull things down and integrate them together, test them together, and see how things work well with each other or not. We create this composition, and then we need to test that composition. And once we test the composition, we know if it works or not. And then we need to tell the world that if that thing worked or not, which brings us to confidence level modified event, which basically means, okay, guys, OpenDaylight community, ONAP community, you said this thing works. Yeah, it works for you in your context, in your environment, but when we put this thing together with OpenStack or Kubernetes, it doesn't work. So this is the confidence level we apply to this, the quality stamp. It doesn't work. Then they go back, fix it. It comes back to us again, the new version of those artifacts. We test it, and this time we say it works. And this enables all these communities to even promote their artifacts further and make even releases much faster than before, because their things are tested by OPNFV like a user, because we are trying to do things like a user and have production line environment, like environment in OPNFV, bare metal labs and stuff. And this actually makes all these communities to iterate things on faster, enable innovation and all these words, you know. And if we can come to there, I'm sure this could help us to, bring even more developers, because they will be seeing like, okay, things are pretty fast, they are developing cool things, we should join, and so enabling developers basically. So they forget about the implementation details of all these CI/CD, but focus on what really adds value. This was the demo, and this wasn't the demo, and this is the demo setup. So we have 3 Jenkinses, 3 CI systems here. One of them is OpenDaylight, the other one is ONAP. They're all developing their own stuff. And then we have OpenNFV XCI, and that integrates those things. And in this case, like auto-release, when OpenDaylight or ONAP builds something, they store their artifact on artifact repo, and they publish events telling what happened with those artifacts, and those events are consumed by OPNFV CI, and we do what we need to do. And this is since like publish, subscribe, the Open Daylight or ONUP, they might not be aware of our existence at all. We might be a vendor as well, like we are building our own product based on open source technologies, and we might want to do that faster, and we can hook into these message buses as well and do stuff in our environment as well. So now the demo. I have 3 Jenkinses here. So this one, can you read it? Zoom. This is ODL auto-release fake job and ODL promote fake job, and the same thing is there for ONUP auto-release job and promote job, and these are different Jenkinses, and this is the OPNFV Jenkins, which basically creates an OpenStack and Open Daylight scenario, composition, tests it, and publishes an confidence level event, and the same thing for Kubernetes and ONUP. And as I said, these Jenkinses, they are not aware of each other. The only thing common between them is the message broker. And if I try to start this job, so it has some parameters in it which tells what this is about. I just click build, and this is basically trying to demonstrate the auto-release job of Open Daylight, which runs on a nightly basis. And then the event published by that job, this job already composed the scenario. It was just completed 8 seconds ago. And the composed scenario gets tested by OPNFV scenario test job, which sends a confidence level modified event. And if you look at the console logs, this is ODL auto-release. Here we have the event created by ODL CI, and we can check the event ID to see if we are really making demo here or just faking. We look at this job and console. So that is the event that triggered this job without ODL CI knowing about it. And this creates a composition which results in a new event with the composition defined event, which has an event ID and some other metadata. And this event is consumed by another job on OPNFV Jenkins this time. And then we look at this console log. And this time, the job on same Jenkins consumed that event and tested that composition. And in the end, it sent a confidence level modified event telling that the composition worked fine. And then we take this event this time and go back to ODL Jenkins, because ODL wants to promote their artifacts further, so they are looking after our test results, and they use this event to determine if their artifact is good enough. And we look at promotion job and the console log, and we have the event published by OPNFV triggering stuff on ODL Jenkins. And I will quickly do the same thing with ONUP, same auto-release job. And this runs. It might take a few minutes because slaves are provisioned from OpenStack Cloud. But in the end, the idea is same. We don't ask ONUP or ODL to change how they build their stuff. We can't tell that because they are better in what they are. They know what they are doing. They develop this software. We are just consuming that software. The only thing we need is to ensure that whenever they do that, we need to know that thing is done and we can take it in. And the only thing they need to adhere to or comply with is the messaging protocol. And that is the, I think, after the vocabulary thing, that is the most crucial thing about OpenCI, to come up with a messaging protocol. So anyone who wants to be involved or use what's happening, what's developed by these communities, CI systems can consume those things. So we set this messaging protocol in place, and you just go and update your Jenkins job or Zool job or Spinnaker job and just either hook into message broker and start listening events and do things based on those events on your side, or you publish events to message bus from whatever CI/CD tooling you are using, and anyone out there can do the same thing and create their own stack on their side. And this, let me check if, oh, this is still waiting, but yeah, it takes some time to bring up the VMs. And that is the thing, the real thing that's been happening lately. And again, this is not rocket science, but we need to...
It's human science.
Yeah, exactly. Like when we went out with this event-driven stuff, there were 2 other proposals as well. So there are ideas out there, but we haven't been talking about those things.
Yep.
That is the point. We need to talk about those things, and we shouldn't forget about the tools as well, but tools shouldn't tell us what we can talk about. We should start on this level and find out how we can get these things work in right way for all of us, serving our needs and helping everyone. So let me refresh this last time. So it's still waiting slave, so I skip that part and
We
go
know it
back
works.
to, sorry?
We know it definitely works.
It worked, Andy knows that.
See us later for actual proof.
So it's basically, yeah, the previous one is like, yeah, this is the current situation, and we need to move to this direction, whatever way. Again, the events, using events is one idea. If there are other ideas, come and share those ideas, and then we find sustainable way forward together.
Yeah, so, excuse me, you know, again, to move past Fatih's last point of like, how do we get together and talk about the proposals that have already been presented and been worked on and those that are still kind of in the pipeline. So we have a mailing list. We want to kind of do a very lightweight and, you know, give a few different options. So you list.openci.io, OpenCI on Freenode. GitLab is where we're like storing these proposals and like information about like, here's some upcoming events that we could probably all get together at as well. Mattermost is like the open source Slack kind of thing. So for those who are not necessarily so comfortable with Freenode, IRC, you got Mattermost. And then we're thinking about, you know, should we have Wiki, Etherpad, Ethercalc, and, you know, should they be located at those URLs? And then tomorrow? We have essentially our second face-to-face, quite a bit of time there, so we can dive into, like we can go to the GitLab and see like the folks that we identified as, you know, who's the people to reach out to, what's the proposals that are there, let's dig into those things a little bit, stuff that hasn't been talked about yet.
And if there are new people, like what are they all interested in?
Essentially that is it. So thank you, and any questions?
Yeah, we have 7 minutes, so we...
Questions. Who knows what's for lunch?
I don't know.
You are not supposed to ask questions.
There's a plate from,
I can ask
not just
questions.
cold stuff.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, this is Tuesday through Thursday.
I also have to man my booth during lunch, so I went and had a sandwich earlier, as I told you, but I'm hungry already.
Sorry.
Anyone?
Questions?
Does anyone
Crystal
want to
clear.
see what happens when 3 people try to do rock, paper, scissors together? We can do a live demo of that.
We should try one more time.
We can do it. Okay. Are you guys ready? Oh.
You lose.
Oh, you lose.
All right. Well, thank you all
Thank
again
you.
for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.